In this video tutorial, we're going to talk about screen resolution and alignments. I will demonstrate and teach you how to build a scene that can target multiple screen resolutions, as well as cover the concepts of content alignment and anchoring. When you build a presentation, you normally will target a particular screen resolution. Here, for example, you can see some of the common configurations, including 1K, which is 1920 by 1080, 4K, and so on. Now, the scene editor has a built-in mechanism so you can target multiple screens within a single configuration. This makes it easy so you can create a presentation without having to worry about your target resolution, as long as the general width and height of the screens that you are targeting is roughly the same. However, if the screen dimensions are radically different, for example, if you build a presentation for horizontal screens and then deploying on a vertical screen, then you'll get some content skewing. So with that, let's begin. So the first place that you're going to interact with screen resolution is going to be right here under scenes. You can create a blank scene and just enter your width and your height for your screen. Or you can go to the wizard, give your scene a name. So here we are presented with either a horizontal or a vertical screen configuration. In most cases, it's going to be a 1920 by 1080 horizontal high definition screen. And create our scene. Click on the background, go to player, layout, and you can see the width and the height, and of course you can modify this if your screen resolution is different. And even if you're targeting a screen, let's say of 3840 by 2160, everything will still look fine since it has the same ratio. And if you're targeting a screen resolution that doesn't have exactly the same ratio, we can still align the content properly so it automatically scales. So let's go ahead and add our component, go to import, components, and we'll drag and drop a label. Now if I go to the label properties, you'll notice that I can go to layout and set its auto scaling, and what this means is that it will automatically scale and position itself at the right offset regardless of the screen resolution. So next I also want to add an image, and since I don't have any images here, I'll just go back to resources, go to the library and just grab myself an image, click on import, go back to my scene and import my resource. And let's go ahead and preview our presentation. But before that, I'm just going to make sure that the layout is set to auto scaling on both the image and on my label. And actually I'm going to set it properly so it's aligned. And click on play to launch the web preview. And here you can see that even if I resize the screen, everything is still placed in the right offset. Now content might get skewed, but even if it gets skewed, the content is still placed in the proper XY coordinates, and that's because we set the auto scaling. Let's go ahead and turn the auto scaling off and see how it behaves. You'll notice that now when I resize the screen, the content actually gets cut off and doesn't automatically scale. So the benefit of auto scaling is that it allows you to always maintain the ratio between the components and scale your content. So next, let's go ahead and talk about anchoring. So if I go back to my resources and drag over an image, I can of course zoom in and zoom out so I can see the entire canvas, just easier to work. And going back to its properties, just like before, I can set the auto scaling under its layout. However, this time I'm going to turn it off. And as soon as I turn it off, you'll see that I'll be able to set the anchoring right here. And if I select the 4 outer boxes, let's go ahead and zoom out. You notice that essentially what I've done now is I set the anchoring of the image in relation to the edge of the scene. So it's going to be 100 pixels from the left, right, top, and bottom. Let's go ahead and modify this to be, let's say, 85 and 30, so you can see the difference. Go ahead and preview the presentation one more time. Notice that if I run the presentation in different screen resolution, it's still maintaining the proper position of the image and respect my properties that I've set right here. So taking advantage of auto-scaling and anchors will allow you to build a presentation and a scene that maintain its ratio regardless of what type of screen resolution you're going to run it on. Next, let's go ahead and add a clock component. Set its properties so we can see more of it. And this time we're going to switch to its internal anchoring. So before we use the external anchoring, and this is the internal anchoring. Here, just like before, I can set the anchoring, but this is going to be in respect to its internal content. So notice that I set it to the left upper edge of 250 pixels. So I went ahead and pushed the content 250 pixels to the right. So the internal anchoring gives you more flexibility on its XY position within its internal constraints, whereas the external anchoring gives you an XY position in relation to the outer scene. And the last thing I wanted to touch upon as far as anchoring is anchoring at the center of the scene. So sometimes you just want to make sure that something is at the center or off center. So what you can do is simply select again the clock, go to its layout properties, disable the auto scaling, but this time for the external anchoring we'll go ahead and set the center. You'll notice that my content is a little bit smaller now, so I'll go ahead and enlarge it. Go ahead and preview the presentation, and so you see that the content is at the center, and if I resize the presentation, it maintains its center position. And finally, I just wanted to touch on the different tools you have in the studio to be able to align content. Since we're on the topic of screen resolution, I think it just makes sense to cover some of the tools that you need to work within the resolution of your scene. So here on top, you can see the different tools we have to align your content. So the first one are these alignment dots right here for vertical and horizontal alignment. I can select multiple objects, align them vertically or horizontally, and go back and forth. I can also set the items to align to the top, bottom, left, and right. So you can see I can have them all aligned to the top. Let's go to undo. And align to the left, and so on. You can also align content in context of the scene. So if I want something to align to the left, top, or the center of the scene, or the bottom, and so on. Next is the magnetic alignment. You can see right now that if I drag an object, it automatically aligns in accordance to other objects. So I can turn this on and off right here. And now it's smooth and it doesn't automatically magnetize itself to other objects. Next is the drag resolution. So you'll notice here that on the drag resolution right here, right now my drag resolution is set to 1, so it's very smooth when I drag it. However, I can click on this multiple times and change my drag resolution. So if I set it, let's say, to 50, you'll notice that the content kind of jumps around, so it doesn't drag as smoothly, which is sometimes useful when you want to align content. So you can tell right now that it's just going to be easier for me to kind of build mostly like a step type of a configuration. And back to a resolution of 1. And the last one are the guidelines. You can turn the guidelines right here, set a particular kind of configuration, and then the content will automatically align to the lines. So you can see even though the magnetic is off, I can still drag onto the lines. I can also select the particular lines and delete them. And I can also add new lines by clicking right here on the upper corner or on the vertical. This is, for example, useful when you're creating a food menu board and you have hundreds of labels and you want to align them all in a certain way. And to turn it off, switch back. So I hope you enjoyed this video tutorial on screen resolution, alignment, and the different tools you can take advantage of. Thanks for watching, and let us know if you have any questions.